Hey, what's up, guys? DannyVNCR and Red Llama Evan Halfmann.
What's up, guys?
I mean, I guess if you want to do the intro.
No, it's just not good at timing.
I guess so. Hey, what's up, guys? DannyVNCR and Red Llama Evan Halfmann here. We're with another installment of the First Cut. Evan, say hello, would you?
Hey.
And today we are going over Synth Pop, of all things. Synth Pop. My new favorite brand of Coca-Cola and such. So, Synth Pop, I'll say, is one of those things that I don't personally listen to a whole lot of it. I mean, I listen to some, more that, what is the term they use? Witch House, I guess, particularly more than anything. But I don't really have a whole lot to say on it introductorily, other than it's not something I listen to too much. Evan, do you have anything you'd like to say towards Synth Pop, what it is, what it means to you, how it touches you?
I definitely don't want to say what it is because that's not my role.
Sure.
It's just what it is to me. I don't know. It's okay music. It's definitely not my my bag completely, but it, like everything, well, like the only other genre I've chosen thus far, it's just something that I kind of love it, and I kind of don't really love it. I don't know, I kind of want to explore it further to really know what it does for me. But I mean, typically when I think of synth pop, I guess I think of like Pet Shop Boys. I think of like churches and like,
Sure.
I don't know, just like
Purity Ring.
Well, Purity Ring is different because I think Purity Ring is more, well, okay, maybe their newest album is kind of synth pop, but before that they were definitely more associated with like house music and like
Sure.
electronic, or like even like electro pop. But
I love we're saying this. Album comes up, Nothing is Sacred by Columbine. Like, ooh, controversial.
yeah.
For those who are listening on iTunes or SoundCloud, obviously you didn't get to see that. Obviously, if you follow the series on our other websites, then you can. Yeah, I'll say my big thing with synth pop, I guess, is kind of similarly to dark ambient, which was not the last one we did, but the time before that, so episode 2. I think there's a lot of people who do it well, and there's significantly more that don't. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of... I think that could be really said for almost all music, to be completely honest, is that a lot of the market is oversaturated with just total garbage. And, you know, I'm not saying that to anybody in particular, so, you know, no shots fired. I mean, I guess if you take it that way, then that's... I hate to say it, but that's kind of your problem. But certainly not talking about anybody in particular, but I do think, especially websites like Bandcamp and such, there is just way too much music that is purely not good. And it's pretty hard to find the music that is good through that. But hopefully we're gonna elucidate on some of the good in this series and in this video. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Okay, so getting into our first artist, and I'm hoping I pronounced this correctly because it's obviously French, and maybe not so obviously, I am not French. La Couleur, I'm just going to say Couleur.
La
Couleur. This is what Evan says. French synth pop. Well, I think she sings in French. It says they come from Montreal, Quebec, which I believe is French territory, if I'm not mistaken. So there's that.
Montreal.
So yes, interesting that. Evan, would you like to open up on this artist?
La Couleur is a cool artist, I guess. Yeah, I like this one. Just glance over my notes. I think like the main reason I picked this one, I guess, was I don't know. I thought that was just kind of like a cute looking cover with like the wearing a shirt with like a picture of herself on it. Like it's just kind of funny. So,
Yeah.
like that kind of like sucks me in. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, I definitely am like a sucker for like French vocals. Like French singing kind of does it for me. Like it just sounds really good. So
Yeah, I can empathize with that.
so knowing that this would be that sort of thing, I decided to dive in, and yeah, these are good songs. I mean, I don't really have anything like really special to say. I mean, it's certainly not breaking any mold, but as far as like the synth pop, I mean, I wouldn't say it's incredibly faithful to like synth pop. I mean, that was the hard part with this. I think with this episode is that there's a lot of, I guess, a lot of liberty with that term, and I guess
True.
I'm so shallow with that term that I tend not to think of a lot of diverse sounds, but like I think it definitely fits the bill, mainly in the aesthetic, I guess. No, these are fun songs. They're well produced. I kind of feel like this would be, yeah, maybe if you went to a show or something and you saw her playing, I think that would be fun.
Be a fun time, I think. Fun to maybe do some drinks and or drug-os at a live event. I'll say what I liked about this, I mean, I guess they called it an album, so I'll call it an album. It's very short. In my opinion, to be called an album, it's what? Let me see real quick. Yeah, 5 tracks, and yeah, it is a very, very short album. However, I also like to go off of the integrity of the artist, so I will call it as such. What I liked about the album was that the music was very diverse. Like the opening track, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that because my French is horrible. Well, you can see it.
Voyage amoureux.
Okay, there you go. Evan said it. I enjoy phonetically the French language, but I am absolutely horrible at pronouncing anything that is in French. But the opening track is very very spatial and ambient, and I really dig that. It's hard to really hear something like that and be like, oh yeah, boom, synth pop. But the rest of the album is kind of, it's a lot more bumping, and the songs are still pretty different, but they're pretty fun. They're, you know, good. I don't want to say dance tunes, but they're songs that you can really get down to. You know, bob your head to, or you know, grab your partner and do-si-do, whatever your poison is. But yeah, I rather enjoyed this one. I will mention too that Evan and I also mutually decided, despite the fact that it seems to have been doing pretty well, we are no longer going to be rating the artists, just because we both feel that rating is really insanely subjective, and what we think is really good, you may not. We would rather just say nice things and not give implications of negative connotations or anything else. or nonetheless say, well, this artist is better than this artist. Just say, well, I mean, here's the thing. If we're featuring them, they're good, and we're definitely recommending them. So we'd rather you just take what we're saying, and
I'm
if you're
not
inspired to listen to it from that.
I'm not a critic. I mean, I feel like I will give every artist, even if they don't deserve it, I mean, I'll give every artist the benefit of the doubt that their artistic creation is completely, like, every piece was deliberate and for a reason. So for me to come in and say, well, I like this, but I feel like this part of it was lazy or
sure,
maybe not well thought out. Well, it wasn't me who made it, so I just think...
Sure. I mean, I've known plenty of bands, honestly, that to me have the most arbitrary or just sometimes, honestly, outright stupid, to me, reasons for doing some of the things that they do in their art. But at the same time, just like Evan said, it's not my place to say that is or is not good or is not genuine. If that's what music is to them, then that's your experience. I don't have any say in that. So I would just rather cull out what I think is good and show that. And I think that's just kind of what we're doing. So to rate it just seems kind of pointless, personally.
Rate it good out of good.
Yeah. I rate it please listen out of good. Yeah. So with that being said, let's move on to the next artist, shall we?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so the next artist we have is Black Magic, who I just went up and down their page, and I didn't see a specific where they're from. I'm guessing because, you know, all of their stuff was produced in Canada, they're probably from Canada. Whereabouts, I'm not sure, to be quite honest. So, not going to comment on that, aside from what I just did. But Black Magic, Evan, would you like to open up?
Black Magic.
What? What do you want?
Yep. This band, I think, like, has a pretty specific sound and a pretty specific market they're catering to with their, I mean, come on, if you can't tell what they kind of sound like just with, like, the aesthetic of, like, the mainly with, like, that big, like, font, they're definitely, like, especially the banner too, they're going for, like, really, like, kind of kitschy, like, dark new wave vibe, I guess. And that's sort of the thing here, I guess. Maybe for anyone who's seen the movie Tribe, like, it's kind of like a lot of the music from that. And it's this is probably, like, I don't know, it's good for what it is. It's definitely not something I would really want to sit down and listen to, just because it's so I guess formulaic. They sort of have a sound, and they really feels like they really wanted to cultivate that sound, but yeah, it's fun, I guess. This is one of those things where I feel like it would be, like, a lot of fun to listen to this kind of stuff, like, in a car, like, driving through, like, the city streets at night and, like, just blasting it and just, like, not giving a fuck or something. It just kind of feels like that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I very much agree with you on the dark new wave. I don't think I could subgenre that better myself, honestly, and which is interesting because I didn't think of that either. I thought, yeah, it definitely did feel new wave to me, for sure. the aesthetic definitely fits the music extremely well. Obviously, I mean, they know what they're doing. But yeah, what to say? I'm trying to just think of anything that you didn't already say. It pretty much sums it up just about to a T. I mean, I enjoyed the music as a whole. As I mentioned earlier, synth pop really isn't my vibe to begin with. But yeah, this definitely felt, I want to say it almost feels out of time, and I certainly don't mean that derogatorily, because it is good. It is a fun listen. I don't honestly know if I could dance to it. I'm sure, like, if this is your thing, like, it's very danceable music. It's just I don't feel that beat in me, I guess.
It's like
if I heard it at the right type of party, I would be excited, but it would have to be the right type of party.
This feels like the music they play at a party in, like, I don't know, somewhere in, like, Los Angeles. It feels like definitely like SoCal kind of, like, cool night music.
Yeah, to me it feels like if somebody's like, "Hey man, we're going to an 80s party. You wanna come to this 80s party at this nightclub, in Los Angeles." Like, that's where I would imagine hearing this.
Yeah, it reminds me of, like, it reminds me of Sisters of Mercy and like early Ministry and stuff.
Sure.
But, like, the interesting thing with this band, I guess, is that you never can tell without asking, I guess, like, if these kind of artists are trying to be kitschy or not. Or if they're sort of wearing the aesthetic as if to, like, this in the same way that, like, vaporwave kind of wears that aesthetic, and you can never tell if they actually. I mean, as far as I can tell, these people look pretty young. I mean, I doubt they were, very old or remember the '80s very well. So, it's not something that obviously is of, like, any importance. It's just something that always piques my interest.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I definitely feel that. What more is to be said on this one? I mean, it's a fun listen. It's very strange. It's different. And strange. If you ever hear me say words, I'll say like strange or weird or bizarre. Never ever is that a bad thing. If I say it's bad, that's a bad thing. But it's strange and it's different, but it's kind of fun. But definitely, if you're into that dark territory of new wave, I think you'd really enjoy it. Give it a listen if that's your thing. Certainly. Evan, closing thoughts before we go on to the next artist.
Yes, I really don't, actually. I thought I had something, but I don't really have anything else.
That's okay.
That's it.
All right. Well, let's move on then. On to the final artist of the eve. We have Comrade Hat. Now, I'll actually open a little bit in saying from the UK, and we can clearly see from Londonderry, UK. Comrade Hat was really more of my vibe, personally. I really got into this one myself. It feels like it has some real, obviously, heavy synth pop feel and influence, but it seems a lot more deep and psychedelic to me, and really more like, I don't want to say trance-like, just in the way that people will be like, oh, you mean like the trance genre? Well, no, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, entrancing. It's very open, dreamy, and just really good, really soaked in good tone. Which is funny because when I think of synth pop as a whole and all of its relative subgenres, I don't want to be that guy, but good tonality is not one of the things I think of. As a matter of fact, very commonly I think of the exact opposite. I think of, like, really corny sounding synths, just really piercing tones and things like that. But In this case, they really went away from that, and it seemed like they made music a little more organically, which I get goes away from the synth, but I still feel that it goes into the synth pop sound really well. So I really enjoyed this one. As a matter of fact, this is likely one that I will be buying myself. Evan.
So typically synth pop, you're not going to hear a lot of dynamics, which is fine because I mean that's not really what it's there for. I mean, dynamics, like let's be honest. I mean, this is a big conversation, but I mean,
let's talk about it.
Which can be had. But dynamics, I think, are extremely important, but they're also really overrated. I think with a genre like synth pop, strong dynamics aren't really that necessary, though this artist definitely has that, like in spades. There is a strong emphasis on high dynamics, which I think was really important, and we definitely made this very interesting. I mean, this is definitely a pick of the week, I guess.
Oh, for real, me too. By the way, certainly.
So, I mean, again, it's kind of one of those ones where I don't really know where to start. I mean, I have a list of like thoughts and notes.
Sure.
But they, I mean, for one, I mean, again, this is one of those things where like, I mean, picking this artist, was it like a little bit liberal to say synth pop? Maybe, but then again,
I would still say it absolutely
no, it definitely is.
Yeah.
But that's just my own insecurity with like when I think of synth pop, I tend to think of like one sound, and I tend to think of like a little synthesizer playing a major key melody, and that's kind of what I tend to think of. So this is definitely to say it's on the fringe would be an exaggeration, but it's definitely different than your average.
When I think of synth pop too, another big thing that's, and it's certainly not a prerequisite, but it's one of the things that I think of and think like, when I think of synth pop, I think of this, is I always think like synth pop makes me want to get up and dance. Like all of the bands that I listen to that are synth pop make me want to really move, and not, just bob my head and like, oh, this is good, but they make me really want to get up and move. This artist did not do that for me, and I'm glad, because I think the sound honestly is better than I think a lot of the things that make me want to dance. I really enjoy it, and it gives me the opportunity to really absorb it and take it in. It's not that I'm not moved by it, but it doesn't make me want to, get up and
do the
really
twist.
do the twist, do the mashed potato and all of that. It just makes me want to sit down, sink into a nice comfy chair, maybe with a glass of scotch, and just really soak it in, and that's good. I really, really like that. And Evan, on your point of dynamics, I'll say too, like, I really appreciate dynamics. I appreciate them a lot. Certainly not as much as you do, just because I know how big dynamics are to you. And obviously, when we contrast like our favorite bands, your favorite bands are way more dynamic than my favorite bands. But I do think dynamics, while not necessarily crucial to honestly almost any genre, I think that they can be important when done well. I specify on that to say that there are a lot of bands that are extremely dynamic, but they are horribly dynamic. That they just do like really, really weird things that are kind of all over the place and make the music dynamic, but it doesn't make it good.
Well, what I mean, yeah, like I feel like dynamics, and I guess I mean specifically like volume dynamics.
Yeah.
And like I guess like playing dynamics.
Sure.
Like they can be, if done wrong, they can definitely be an impediment to enjoying the music. It's just I mean that's kind of like the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like in a genre like synth pop that to me, like you said, it makes you want to get up and dance. When I hear a really good dance song that has a really catchy melody, I don't want to hear it get whisper quiet and then explode.
Absolutely.
I want it to just be an onslaught of just like...
Yeah, exactly. Well, but that's the thing too with a dance song, is that you don't want things like, or if the time kind of drops like in the middle of the song or something, you don't want to be in the middle of having your groove and then go like, wait, what the fuck just happened? Be like, oh, now I guess I've got to find a new meter. You want to just be like, yeah, no, I know how I'm going to dance to this song, because it's a dance song. You want to feel the same when you start as when you're done. That's just
it's like how
you want to go.
Dancing Queen. That song isn't dynamic at all, but it's
so good. It's so good. I still stand true on the statement that, like, you absolutely can say the words, I do not like the song Dancing Queen by ABBA, but you're definitely lying if you say it. You're definitely lying. I'll say another, going on the dynamics thing too, a phenomenal example of a great song that had an extremely unfortunate use of dynamics, in my opinion, is Hurt by 9 Inch Nails. And I know, Evan, you and I have talked about this before, but I know just about everyone's heard that song. They've heard the Johnny Cash version, or this, that, or whatever. But the original version on the Downward Spiral, if you've never heard it, is extremely quiet throughout the entire song up until the very end, when it becomes like probably about 6 times louder and just a big extreme distortion. And it's one of those things that it's kind of cool what they were going for, in the way that obviously it's very uncompressed, and it makes you feel like everything's really quiet and sullen, and then it's just extraordinarily violent out of nowhere. But when you actually really listen to the song, the whole song is so quiet that you have to turn it up really to just be able to hear it. And once you get to the end, it's going to pretty much, if you're listening to it with headphones, it's just going to blow up your ears, because it's just so insanely loud. As a phenomenal song that's done a lot of great things, but that is one of the worst uses of dynamics I think I've ever seen.
Well, the problem with that and that way of using dynamics is that that's the song. It's forcing you into a certain situation. Like, you have to listen to the song a certain way, which I think is, I don't
sad.
like that. I think I'm sorry to say, like, I don't know if this is a controversial topic or opinion, but among I guess music listeners, audiophiles, or whatever.
Sure.
But I feel like almost every like music listening situation or element is legitimate. So that being, if you like to listen to music in your car, that's great. That's awesome. If you like to listen to music with your earbuds on your iPod, that's great. If you like to listen to music on vinyl through a hi-fi system,
or if you
awesome.
like listening to music at work in the stock room by yourself while you're putting boxes on shelves.
Yes. Yeah. See, that's the thing. That's the thing that does it for me, is that, and another example, like, if you like to listen to music on the radio,
or
like, even like
if you like listening to music while you sleep.
Yeah. So
that's something I do.
I think it's just it's condescending to act like music should be listened to, or that if you were an artist saying, I think that my music should only be enjoyed in this way, and you're really muddying the experience by listening to it a certain way.
Yeah.
It's just like,
well, I think there's a lot to be said for musicianship and artistry in that way alone, in that, like, well, I have 2 major points on that, and I don't want to get too far gone on either of them, but yeah, I know, you get into that whole tangent. Well, yeah, so the first thing I'll say is that I guess, like, the biggest thing is that when you create music, more often than not, and I'm not saying that the opposite doesn't exist, but more often than not, when you're creating music for yourself. You're creating something that you feel deep inside you that comes out through the artistic expression of sound and music. And I get that, totally. But when you make music in a public domain, you put music out there for everyone to listen to. And here, you have to understand that their experiences are going to be different than yours. So nobody can feel or think exactly what you feel and think. So when you make music and people hear it in a way where they think, man, this is something that, it really relaxes me. And I find that it helps calm me down when I have anxiety or, I need to sleep or something like that. But the artist made it more to be like really outgoing and, try to like have a big pick-me-up kind of feel. And they're like, really? That's the exact opposite of what I had felt. Well, that doesn't devalue the listener's perspective. It doesn't devalue the artist's perspective either, but it doesn't devalue anybody. It just is what it is. And that's one of the beautiful, amazing things about mediums like music. And I think books are another thing that I see that a lot with too, where the author will write a certain, line or paragraph or chapter or the whole fucking book to have a certain meaning and feel, but you cull your own experiences out of that. You don't read it or listen to the music, at least particularly, to be like, I want to get inside the brain of the person that wrote this. I want to sympathize with what they feel. No, you empathize with what they feel, and you make your own experience out of that. That's why I've always thought that, like, honestly, like, high school English is such bullshit, because your teachers are always like, well, what did this line in this paragraph of this book mean? And they make you think things that they thought, as opposed to just coming up with your own ideas and kind of pulling your own perspective. And that's always really disturbed me, to be completely honest. I think that's really fucking backwards thinking.
Yeah. I think conceptualism and sincerity are just vastly more important.
Absolutely.
than explicit meaning ever could be.
Sure,
so,
definitely. I've listened to some albums, honestly, that are not deep at all, musically or conceptually, but they just spoke to me so well that they'll always have a super special place in my heart, and they're albums that I could listen to for my entire life, and I don't need to have the meaning. I don't need to know that somebody meant something sincere by it, because it means something to me.
Yeah. So I guess to get back to to Mr. Comrade Hat.
Mr. Comrade Hat.
Conway Twitty.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Comrade Hat.
Yeah. So obviously this music is quite interesting. I mean, it's like another big topic for me that this music, I felt like it has an element of breath that you don't get to hear a lot, especially in pop music. And so obviously, as you can tell on the screen there, I mean, these songs are a little bit, some of them are a little bit longer.
Can we for one moment talk about how fucking amazing that album cover is?
Oh, the album cover is beautiful. No, the album cover is fabulous. I mean, that's one of those like album covers that I'm like, that makes me want to go out there and shoot more photography.
It kind of makes me angry because I wish it was an album cover of mine.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's just so good.
Yeah. So, like definitely like a dark, swinging, moody breathiness through these songs that I feel like these are like, I don't know, this is interesting music. I think it's really good. I think I wrote down a couple voices that this fellow's voice reminded me of a little bit. It reminded me of a Tim Boness a little bit, and that's a good thing.
That's a very good thing.
And then it reminded me of, I don't know why, but it reminded me of John Wetton a little bit, who was one of the singers for King Crimson a while back.
Yes.
and I don't know. He just has I think he's a good voice.
I think his voice sucked. Let's talk about it. I'm just kidding. That was absolutely a joke.
And I mean,
oh, Neil Burns is his name, by the way.
Neil Burns. Yeah, I feel like I wrote down a note here that I thought was funny. I guess I felt like listening to this. I was like, I feel like this would sound really good on a long, like, dark train ride through like valleys, through like, pastoral.
Sure.
Just country woods. Like
yeah.
It just has like, it almost has like a kind of vibe like the album starts when at dusk when the sun's going down, and then the album ends and like the sun's just about to come up again. It's just like,
yeah, it does have a nice flowing concept to it. It's an extremely good listen. So, we talked about these other bands saying, they're really good, definitely give them a listen, and I stand by that. Listen to all these bands, but really, this is one of those artists that, I mean, like, I would buy their shirt and like talk about them like recreationally, not just occupationally. Phenomenal listen. Please listen to it. And not only that, but please let us know what you thought too.
Well, yeah. I had one more note, I guess. There was a, and this is a specific observation, was that at the end of Crossroads, there's it turns into like crashing noise, and I love that. Like, that definitely, like, I found like the 3 songs before that pretty good, but once I heard that, like, that was that thing that made me know that, like, yeah, this is gonna be the epic of the week for me.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
I'm all about that. So, yeah, recommendation.
Yeah, strong recommend. So before we close out, I have a couple of very important things I want to address really quick to our listeners. For our podcast listeners who are listening to this right now via SoundCloud or iTunes, welcome back. Thank you for sticking in. And if you have not subscribed already, I'll tell you, we sure would greatly appreciate it. And likes and comments and all of that are so greatly appreciated. That would just be so grand if you would do that. To all of our visual podcast listeners on both YouTube and Peanut Butter Disaster, we do have the podcast version available. If you would, if you couldn't tell by that, available for download and stream on both SoundCloud and iTunes. So totally, if you prefer that route instead of watching these actual things, then by all means. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe as well. With that, next week we'll incorporate 2 very big changes to the series that are very noteworthy. The first of which is we will no longer be posting the visual podcasts onto YouTube for reasons that are indiscriminate. But we will be posting the visual podcast exclusively on the DannyVNCR page of peanutbutterdisaster.com. You can still go on and watch them regularly, and you can create profiles, like, comment, subscribe, all of that. And of course, you can still download the regular ones from iTunes and SoundCloud. None of that is changing. But with that change, we get to make a very important thing that has really disturbed us in the making of these before, in that we can actually play music on these. YouTube has had the severe limitation that if you use copyrighted music, really, even if it is for a review, your videos almost always get immediately flagged. It's just a big goofy thing, and it's been a limitation that we've always had trouble with. But now that we're moving away from YouTube, sticking with Peanut Butter Disaster exclusively, iTunes and SoundCloud, that is no longer a problem that we should be having. So we will be incorporating some of the music that we're actually reviewing in future episodes as well. So if you don't necessarily want to look it up just because we're talking about it and you want to hear it a little bit first, that's going to be something that we'll be doing from now on. So beginning episode 5, there will be music incorporated into the reviews as well. So all of that, very important. And again, don't forget to go to www.peanutbutterdisaster.com and check out, that is peanutbutterdisaster, yes, .com. And check out my DannyVNCR page where we will be posting these from now on. And of course, follow us on iTunes and SoundCloud as well. Again, Evan, would you like to say anything to the beautiful people before we close out?
Thanks, I love you.
All right. Drive home safe if you've been drinking, and don't smoke meth. Peace out.